Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
It's that time again, friends, for the Gone to the Dogs podcast. Steve Fielder here with you one more time. Broadcasting here from the world headquarters on the west coast of Florida, just about 2 miles from the Gulf of America. And I am recording today on the 4th of July. Usually I don't push the deadline up that close to the date that the episode drops, but had some technical difficulties this week, but we finally got them all figured out, and hopefully our producer Colby Moorhead will be able to get this one in for you on Monday following the 4th. Anyway, I want to give a belated happy 4th of July to all of you out there in the listening audience. I appreciate you so much. Really, lately, the downloads have just been excellent. A lot of people are listening, and we're so thankful for that. We appreciate you so much. I want to thank my sponsors once again, Buddy Woodbury out there and W Hunting Supply, the good folks at Alpha Dog Nutrition, and also Mark Zepp for making this possible. Now, today, sharing his 4th of July with me is a longtime friend, and you know him as Master Breeder, Big Hunt winner, and coon hunter from the great state of Pennsylvania, Randy Smith. Randy and I have had a good conversation already before I posted or pushed the record button, and we're going to start off this conversation where Randy's talking about a recent fishing trip that he took with his son Troy, his oldest son, and so just join our conversation. I hope you enjoy this one. It's packed from the start to the finish with great, useful information for anybody that loves coon hunting, wants to breed dogs, wants to compete in competition. So hang with us for this, what I think is an exciting episode of Gone to the Dogs.
We had an incredible trip, so we made memories that I'll never, ever forget.
Well, I'm sure you do. And the fact that your oldest son, Troy, who just graduated this year from high school, and to see him following in your footsteps and enjoying some of the things that you enjoy, that's got to be very rewarding. And of course, your younger son Cole, he's got his own thing going, and you and Carrie are very supportive of his. I guess you call that motocross that he does?
It's a woods racing series. It's like single track that they make. Usually the laps in this thing are 10 to 15 miles each, and he's racing. He's racing with adults. He's only 16, but he's about 6'3", so he couldn't ride a super mini anymore. He outgrew his youth status. So his last race here, there were over 300 racers, and he was 26th overall and third in his class. So he's really gaining ground. And it was about 95 degrees and sultry humidity. I don't know how. When those guys pull in from then, they just collapse. It's two and a half hours of that. Yeah, really something else. Yep. Wow. Yeah.
Well, that's the determination. I think there's, we talk about these dogs all the time, and that's what we're primarily going to talk about today. But genetics, man, I think a little bit of that determination may be rubbing off the old man.
My mother's side of the family were rugged, like hunter-gatherer people. That a lot of them, they didn't have jobs. They just lived off the land, and they picked and sold produce and berries, and they were incredible folks. And just, you can imagine, counting on, that you know what you get paid for whenever you're doing that kind of thing. So they were tough folks.
Well, I tell you what, the old saying is the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. So, but that's great. And, our family heritage is so important to us. And I look back over on mine and on both sides of the family. And my mother always said, well, you like your dad's family better than you like mine. It wasn't that at all, but they were just more attuned to the things that I enjoyed, that I liked,
Sure.
the hunting, the fishing, the outdoors, all that sort of thing. Where on her side of the family, not so much,
Mm-hmm.
My aunts and uncles were very, very good to me, but I just, of course, as a kid, I gravitated to the things my dad liked to do. Well, that's awesome. And you got another trip coming up here in a few days.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine call me, and that they had a group of 4 that's going to Alaska pike fishing on the Yukon River, and they had a guy that wasn't going to be able to make it. They invited me to go, so to help them out, I thought I would just go ahead and go.
Yeah, you'd make the sacrifice, right? Well, I know that those trips aren't cheap, but I tell you what, it's kind of like somebody said, this is a bad joke, and I'll get hate mail. They said the reason why divorce is so expensive is that it's worth it. Well, my apologies to the ladies out there and men, I guess. But no, I know that those trips like that are certainly bucket list list items for a lot of people, and I'm just really glad that you get to enjoy that kind of thing every year.
Yeah, I really do enjoy it.
Yeah,
so it's worth every penny to me, and the traveling is horrible. All the flights and everything, but you just have to, keep your eye on the prize. I guess it's what it's all about.
Well, you've been really good to send videos along with me, and I've been on some of those float planes and everything else that you endure to get there. And of course, I guess you pray for good weather. I did a lot of flying, over the years of my career. And when I was in sales before I went to UKC, I did quite a bit of flying in smaller planes and stuff. So, yeah, I can appreciate that. It's white knuckle time sometimes.
Long hours sitting there,
For sure.
Yep.
I think about those pilots of those B-2 bombers that were in that cockpit for 30-some hours.
Isn't that amazing?
That is tough.
Yeah.
Really tough.
Really tough.
Okay, well, we want to talk about these lone pine tree and walkers. Now, you've been on the podcast several times. I looked on my log, and I think it was back in November, maybe the 4th, the last time that you and I sat down and talked, and that was probably when I was up hunting. I was looking the other day, or we were talking about this one dog that Clayton Stark had just posted on Facebook about loving her mouth so much, and that was your little friend, female. And I was up there, and I think I commented that I had hunted. I believe we hunted like 7 nights, or it was close to that, and got to hunt with a friend every night, I believe, between her and Farrah, and we hunted them together some and independently some. But I should qualify that because they were never together. But so the Lone Pine legacy, for people that haven't caught up or don't realize, I know they read the news, and I see that they are, somebody's trying to reach me. Did you hear a train whistle?
No, I didn't
You
hear
didn't
it.
hear it? Okay,
No.
maybe it didn't come through on the recording. I changed my notifications. I had this most obnoxious notification thing that went on and on and on. I learned on this new phone I could change it and it just get one little blast, so I changed it to a train whistle.
Yeah.
Anyway, talking about the dogs and all, looking back in the Lone Pine story, you've shared it many times. And I know people out there recognize the Lone Pine dogs as being a great source of some really good tree and walker dogs. Give me just a little nutshell back of that, your experience with that, Randy.
Well, the first Lone Pine dog that I hunted with was Lone River Gunner that Claude Lawson had up in near Cook's Forest, about probably a little over an hour from here, and he was the best dog around here, I felt, and I would say most people at that time would agree that he was just different. He was something else, and he was a big masculine dude. He was out of Logan's Wild Quick, and Lone River Dick's a daughter of Riverbend Flag and Preston's Roxy. And she was a daughter of Muddy Lane's Queen, which was a Lone Pine female. So there was a lot of really, really good breeding behind him. And that was, you had asked me about the first litter of pups that I ever had. And Woody Malone, down in the East Coast in Maryland there, had an old female that he bred all the time named Leno. And she was a daughter of Riverbend Flag and his Lone Pine Molly, and Molly was a Lone Pine Eagle Smith's Princess daughter. That was a famous cross at the time. So I kept telling him this was after Gene and Woody had bought Gunner off of Claude, that I'd like to have a litter of pups out of him. I had already hunted several dogs out of Gunner, and so Woody loaned me Leno to breed to Gunner, and she was a all white, typical daughter of Flag, calico ears, really, really not what you would say a beauty queen by any means, but so I was hoping, well, surely some of that Gunner stuff will rub off, well, when they were born, Woody called me and said, well, how's them babies, And I said, oh, they're doing good. How do they look? I said, well, they're all white, most of them with calico ears, and he was like, oh my goodness, just drowned them, But anyway, they all went to their new homes, and I kept one, and her name was Kate, and that turned out to be the grandmother to Sue and all them, so it was all good. It was quite the experience. I had them in a big cardboard box, like a washing machine came inside of a building that I had. That was my first whelping nest.
About what era was that, Randy? Can you remember roughly?
I would say that was like early 90s, probably 92, 91, somewhere around in there.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
That's been a minute, as they say.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I recently we kind of shared, you and I together, but they had this Jarvis Umphers Memorial $100,000 hunt at Shawneetown, Illinois. There. Junction, they advertise it as, but and one of the dogs in that Final Four was born right there at your place. I knew this because I picked it up and hauled it back to Virginia for the fellow that bought it. But you had mentioned that two dogs in that Final Four were great grand pups of your Lone Pine Patsy female.
Right.
Tell me about
Yep.
Patsy a little bit.
Well, Patsy was out of Cowboy, which he was a son of Sackett Jr. and Annie. Annie was a litter mate to Lone Pine Naylor, Lone Pine Ellie, Lone Pine Jethro out of Logan's Clover and Lone Pine Chris. So that was Patsy's daddy on the mother's side. Patsy was out of Lone Pine Shania. Shania was out of Leroy, that was out of Lone Pine Naylor and Leno cross that Woody had made, like said he kept her bred. And Sally's mother was Lone Pine Ellie, a litter mate to Naylor. And also, I mean, it was like heavy line bred stuff, that was potent. And Patsy was a great dog in herself. She had done a little bit of winning and was known for being super accurate, had $1 million locate, so on and so forth. And she was the mother of Track Girl. When I bred her the first time, I bred her to Track Man, and that was Muscle Man and Track Girl come from that litter. And that's
Track Girl's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, Track Girl's in the Hall of Fame, and that Scotty Ingles dude that won the 100,000. He goes back. His grandpa is Muscle Man. So, and then Clyde's great grandmother is Track Girl. So that's how they go back to Patsy, and it's fulfilling for me to see these guys doing well with these dogs, and people like Scott Ingle and the Burdens are, putting them out there is really huge, Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, that's a clear endorsement of the kind of product that you're producing up there. And, I've been fortunate. You've been very good to me and inviting me up and letting me, go hunting and see these dogs perform. And, when I think about the Clyde dog that finished second in that hunt, his mother, Fran, was one of the first of your dogs that I hunted with. Well, Sue was actually the first one when she was in the World Hunt.
Yes.
And then Fran, of course, and I always liked Fran. She just had a way. She just got next to me the first time I saw her go, and I really enjoyed that hunt. And of course, we hunted her, and we hunted Shot interchangeably, and what a great time that was. And that was in 2016, so it's kind of hard for me to believe now that that's been going on 9 years ago. So, I've had the opportunity, to see a lot of these Lone Pine dogs firsthand, and I do appreciate that opportunity and to see them in their element and knowing what they're doing in competition, but seeing them at home when they're just night after night, going out there. Last fall we had a rough hunt. I mean, weather was bad. It was dry. Coons weren't cooperating, but those dogs, man, they just got out and got it done every single night. And,
it was hard to find a coon, but we had a really, really tough winter here, and we weren't. It was probably I know it was the longest stretch since I've started coon hunting that I couldn't hunt here this winter. But when I thought our coon population had dwindled some there for some reason. But this spring, when the weather broke, it was just the opposite. I mean, there wasn't coons everywhere, but Troy and I had the best hunting in my whole life for about 2.5 or 3 months here this spring. We were treeing generally between 4 and 8 coons a night, and we don't hunt all night. We've got things to do in the morning, but it was, we got a lot of good training in, and we had some good successes here, competing a little bit this spring, and it was all good. We have, seems like plenty of coons to be, training dogs here. So.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there in the world of coon hunting. And it's really, I had an interesting conversation with Shy Cummings from Missouri on the podcast that's running as we're recording this one. And his idea is that there's still as many coon hunters as ever, but they're just there's so many events and they're so spread out all over. I don't know that I exactly agree with that. I know so many that have kind of fallen by the wayside, and then a lot of them have timed out, like me, pretty much.
Sure,
but still, yeah. Go ahead.
In Pennsylvania here, the driving force behind coon hunting has not, as a whole, not been competition. For most of the coon hunters here in Pennsylvania, it was about hide hunting, in the fall and winter there, and that's what kept the guys hunting. And of course, the fur market has been flat to zero here for going on 10 years now, and our coon hunters have just evaporated. I mean, I haven't. Oh, we heard there's a young boy that's hunting not far from here. I guess we heard him hunting a couple times this spring, but it used to be in the fall there in November. There were dogs treeing and trucks pulled over, all over the place. But that's no more.
Well, yeah, for sure. And but for those out there, the coon hunters that are involved in this thing, and you've heard about these Lone Pine dogs, and I have my ideas and I have my observations from these last 8 or 9 years, of being fairly close to you and Rick and Tom and everybody that's involved with that, and more recently Clayton. I have my ideas of the success, but why do you I know that you put an awful lot into these dogs, and it's on many different levels. If we talk about the care, we can back up. Your stud dog selection, the way you train these females out, and the way you put them in competition, and they make the top tier of competition before you're breeding them, and all. But is there an overall philosophy that you have there, Randy, or a guideline that you go by?
Well, we've just tried to breed, really good ones to great ones to really good ones to great ones, generation after generation. And if you stick with that and don't, we've never cut any corners about, it's too far to go, or if it's going to be too expensive to deal with it. Would just breed local to handy, and ready to handy, like they used to say, or whatever.
Yeah,
just never did that. If I had to do that, I would just skip it, because I wanted my my trademark, to be that it was the best it could be done, and it didn't always turn out the way you like. But if you take those good crosses and you just keep stacking it up and keep stacking it up, it turns out that it's pretty consistent, that they turn out. If they get the right start, which is a big if they get the right start and they're handled correctly, and the problems that come up are able to be dealt with, intelligently, that they generally make it. I mean, there's traits that you'll get by, breeding to stud dogs and stuff that, if like I know certain things about using certain dogs, and I just try to, tell the guys that are getting them, hey, this is what to expect, then, they're not surprised by, hey, that, they don't tree right out of the get-go, or they do this or that, but, the one thing that I try to avoid at all costs is, dogs that just are training wrong. That's a terrible, trait that can just manifest. It just doesn't seem to go away. So that's one of the main things is, breeding accuracy to accurate dogs. So that's huge.
Yeah. Well, and we certainly want to talk about him here in a minute. But this false prophet dog that you have that's out of Frogger, and and I believe he's out of Sioux, right?
Yes. Yep.
Sioux
He's
was
out
your
of a
world
couple world
champion.
champions. He ran loose here for till he was a little over 4 months old. I have videos of him treed when he was 4 months old. He was always a level-headed, calm, collected type of pup. You saw him from the time he was
I've got
little.
some pics of him. The 3 of those, there were 3 males, I believe, in that litter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I sent him to Clayton's when he was like 5 months old. And he literally just started treeing coons, and he stayed at Clayton's for about a year. And we were going to switch dogs out. I've had a lot of people inquire about, why haven't we heard about Prophet or whatever? So, well, this is it. I'm going to give the public breakdown here. So the dog, speaking of breakdowns, when he came here, he was just lost.
When he came back from Clayton,
him and Clayton were buddies, and no matter what I did, he just couldn't get past it. He treated me a lot of coons, but his mood just wasn't like, sometimes he would just do like he should, and he would just bury in there and tree a coon, and the next time he would just look at you, and it was just like he just couldn't get past it. So I thought, well, he just couldn't get past it. So I thought, well, Chucky Atkins had been hunting Bob out there and did great with him, his brother, his litter mate. So he was interested in taking Prophet out there, and it was the same story. He just couldn't get anything going in a row. He just was. You never knew when you went out whether he was in the coon treeing mode or just pouting. And so I finally just said to Chucky, I said, let's just take him back to Clayton's. I talked to Chad Showwater about it out at Walker Days, and Chad said, I think you're going to have to get him back to Clayton. And he landed in Clayton's yard, and the dog just like exploded. He's just like, oh my, I finally got back home here. And anyway, them guys went hunting. Now Prophet never, ever, ever barked in the kennel. Never. So those guys went hunting, and they were about a mile or mile and a half from Clayton's house. And Chucky said, is there a dog treed back through there? And Clayton said, that's Prophet. And Chucky said, he never barked at my place one time. So they went back and got him, and last I heard, Clayton's up into, it's been really miserable hot here since he got him, but he's up into like 20 some coons in a row. Since Clayton's cut him loose, he never stopped.
It's been amazing. He hasn't missed, I don't think.
Just bury in there like a warrior So he's Clayton's dog. That's all. Clayton's gonna compete with him here now, and that was the story. And I've bred several females to him now so far, and I think the dog's going to be a rock star, to tell you the truth.
Oh, he's a beautiful hound with a tremendous mouth, and I just wonder down through the years how many really nice dogs have just been mismatched with, and if they could find that one person that seems to be on their wavelength, well, I know he's going to be well taken care of over there, and I'm looking forward to hearing the wind sheet on Prophet.
Yeah, I look for him to start the win right out of the gate. Man. He's a loner, and he's going to be. When he cocks his head back, that there's a coon there, like as close to every time as any dog alive, I think, so I think Clayton will have a good time with it, and we'll make some more memories with him.
I think so. And, when they had that stud dog auction there in Pennsylvania, where the people voted, on these stud dogs were in there, I think he was right at the top of that voting. And because he's got so much going for him, he's out of 2 world champions, and just Do they make a better looking Walker dog? I don't know. I mean, he's just, well, old false prophet. That's kind of an interesting, and he picked up that PH of those Frogger dogs in his name. Yeah.
Well, I like to give, Birchall that has Frogger is a dear friend of mine, and I always like to, if there's a way to let people know not just what the mama is, but the daddy too, I'm cool with it. You know, it's good.
Well, I haven't said too much about this on my podcast over the years, but that big mouth Walker dog that you hear at the opening of this podcast every time, where the truck pulls up and the window goes down, and Rob Giddings says, "Where's Fielder?" You can hear that big mouth Walker dog back there. That's old Cruz, and he was born right there out of Lone Pine, Thelma, and a big country cruiser dog, and goes back. Cruiser, I think, was a litter mate to your baby female, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So you're listening to Lone Pine every time you listen to one of these podcasts. And old Cruz, he's kind of like the same story, only his story was he happened to belong to a guy down here in the swamps of Florida in the worst coon hunting in the world. And he's up in Virginia in the hills there living the good life. I mean, Ronnie Fields up there has him and loves him to death, and they've raised a couple litter pups out of him. But anyway, I just want to tell the listeners that you're getting a little bit of Lone Pine every time you listen to this podcast. All right. Well, okay. Now, we had a real big run with your dogs. And I know, of course, we could go back to Sue winning the World Hunt in 16, Baby being in so many Final Fours. Unfortunately, Baby died in whelp, I believe, before she was, able to prove herself as a reproducer. But I remember, how long was it? Year before last when Lady and Bella were making all the noise in the big hunts?
Yeah, it's been a couple years ago now. I mean, for the most part there. Yeah, it's been right in around a couple years since Bella won the Pro Sport their first $100,000 hunt they had, and Lady won a truck, and
that Joy Super Hunt, she won that.
Yeah, won the Joy Super Hunt, and she's won a lot. She's a rock solid.
Okay, now Lady, she's bred now, I believe.
Well, let's hope. She was mated with Josie Wells, which comes from Mike Gilbert's dogs out in southern Indiana there, which are, have always been known to be some of the best in the country. And I drove out to Mike's to breed to listen to this. Now you want to talk about good fellows, I was headed to Mike's. What I had called Mike because I had hunted with a dog that came from his place and shot through the world. I thought he was one of the best ones I'd ever hunted with. I had tried to breed to him, but he had been sterile. And Mike said that his buddy Tootsie Hardman in Georgia had a dog that was bred very similar, that he said that he thought I would really be interested in breeding to. So I had Fran and Shot that we spoke of there earlier. They both were in heat at the same time. And Rick and I were going to hunt Bank at the Super Stakes. That'd be Lady's brother. So we went to Mike's, and I said, well, we'll just come out there first and spend the night and hunt. And so Chris Hardman drove Jeb the whole way from Georgia to southern Indiana to have him there for me to breed to him.
Yeah.
Now,
wow.
People just don't do things like that, So, but he did. So I got there to Mike's, and Josie was tied out there. And I just decided to breed Fran to Jeb and Shot to Josie. And this was before anybody knew about Josie or anything. But I looked at his. Now Jeb was Josie's daddy, so I bred to a father and a son there. But I looked at Josie's pedigree and seen that he was line bred on that old doctor dog that Mike had, and he's out of Doc's Little Sugar. She won like crazy, when she was in her prime, and so I just loved that idea of, I thought, man, that dog's got to be potent, being he's from, both of those litters were fantastic. Yeah. That's where Little Fran comes from, that we were going to probably talk about next,
for sure.
Her little run here this spring. So that was the story behind that. And so I had a good experience with Josie, of course. And then I was talking to John about, I was undecided on what to breed Lady to here this time. And, we talked about Josie, and there's lots of dogs showing up out of him. And so that's what we did. So that's another story that was really something. I talked to Jeremy McAllis about it, and I was wondering how I was going to handle everything. And he said, well, how about if we just sent Josie to you? And I thought, well, okay, so 2 minutes later, the owner of Josie there, Zach Reeves, he was on the phone. He said, hey, I just made a phone call. Josie's going to be on his way to your place tomorrow. Now, that's some kind of trust that people put in you. I never even met Zach, but he sent his dog to me. Yeah. And, we got Lady bred and sent him back, and everybody was good. And I asked him what I owed him, and he said, well, just put me down for a pup, So it was like,
wow.
It's really nice whenever, people treat you like
well, really, there's some really good people and if I start naming names, I'll get them in trouble. But I think about John Strickland, Ashley Oxendine. Those guys are just really great people. People. I think if you sit back and look, well, they win a lot, this and that, and all. No, I mean, there's a lot of good, not a lot. There are good dogs out there, and there are good people with those dogs. And, it's just, it's rewarding to know that that's where the sport is going. And, people that you can deal with and not feel like, they're going to take you to the cleaners or they're going to try to, be high-headed and superior acting toward you. No. These are people that love coon hunting just like we do, That Josie Wales' dog, Jeremy Michaelis, one of the finest fellows I ever met. He's brother of Josh, and Josh is a good guy too. But, yeah, and on and on and on it goes. But... well, when you talk about these dogs breeding Fran to something, and we touched on this a little bit, but I kind of followed from the time he was an infant, the Clyde dog that was in this recent Final Four that was down in Virginia with Keston Jesse. And what a nice, I always knew that dog was destined for something big. I watched him. I hunted with him several times and see him get into, he's been, I think, at one final 8 in one of the $100,000 hunts, and he's been now, placed second and on and on. I think he made platinum champion, like falling out of bed with PKC, and then added 30-some thousand to it. So anyway, that's just me, just my memories, just my,
well, Keston did a great job with him, and that's it.
Oh, he did. He really.
It takes wearing shoes out on him to get them that way. But
my ear was numb from Keston calling. He'd send me videos, and he would ask me questions and all this stuff. But that dog did get hunted, and that's the key, I believe. You got to get them out there and get them in the woods. But Clyde was out of Old Fran again, one of my favorites, so.
Yeah, Cooney Valley Pack,
Yeah.
the Power Pack and Easy Cross dog that Burden's had. So, of course, it was
yeah.
natural that they'd like to get him back. And
Yeah.
he's just a youngster. How old is he
He's
now,
3.
Steve?
He's 3.
3.
Uh-huh.
Well, those guys, that's just reach and go time with them. Those, I would assume that as long as everything stays in line here, he's got a bright future with those fellas, I would imagine.
Sure. And that's, again, a testament to good people, good dog people that, take this thing seriously. And Larry Meeks told me one time, I've repeated it several times, that the success of PKC is going to depend on good dogs, and his point being that people got to have winners, to continue to come and to enter and so forth. And it's come a long way, and it's, I don't think it's ever really, coon hunting's ever been as flush with good dogs probably as it is now. Do you?
No, well, there's for a while I was concerned on where it was headed, but the ship has righted now, and this big purse type of situation that's going on with these competition hunts, and it has that the dogs have to operate flawlessly. They have to have a coon as soon as they have a circle tree. Say they don't find that coon, or the dog don't have it, or whatever. You can just about way more times than not kiss it goodbye. You're not going to win that cast. That's how tight they are and how good these dogs are. And they've been breeding them to be like that. And then on top of it, Garmin coming out with these outfits that you can correct a dog, or you can correct them when they're thinking about doing something wrong if you know the dog well enough.
Sure.
They're just trained to, these dogs are trained to the max. They're what you used to have to put up with a dog that was just how they were, is not the case anymore. If you are consistent enough and diligent enough to try to fix a problem, and smart enough to be, to know how to handle the dog correctly, it can take a dog that would be maybe, not a contender on a high level to change the whole scene. It's really something, what I wouldn't have given for an alpha, 25, 30 years ago, there was nights you just couldn't go because, you wouldn't know if you'd be able to recover the dog in time to get up for work and stuff in the morning.
That's for sure.
We just go to an area that's big enough for the dogs to hunt safely now, and it doesn't matter what it's doing or what the weather's like. You can just turn them loose and know you're going to go home with them.
Yeah.
It's like fantastic.
A huge difference. All of those elements that we take care, tools that we take for granted nowadays were not available when I was a kid. I can remember my dad making a grappling hook, welded it and put on a rope to turn a young dog loose on a deer, so that he would get that hook hung up in the brush, and then there would be some prayer meeting time. When he got to the end of the rope.
Isn't that something?
And so it's just incredible. That old pup I've got up in North Carolina night before last, he decided he would join in with a young female there and participate in a deer chase. And He was the last one to quit. He was a hard head. But as my buddy said, he just had to, send him a text message. he got the message that, no, we can't do that. But they're going to do that. I'm going to slide this little question in on you because I know you've got years and years of experience. Would you rather pups be straight or trashy?
I've been fortunate enough that from the time I got with Tom and was this is basically the only line of dogs other than outcrossing lone pine females. I've never hunted anything else to speak of, and Tom. That's why Tom fell in love with Lone Pine dogs, the original ones from down at Stanley Duvall's in Damascus, Maryland, there, because they just weren't trashy.
Yeah.
And Tom had hunted, trooper bred dog, motley bred dogs and all different, type of dogs through the years. And he said that was always the thorn was that they were just junky,
Yeah.
And he started with Toby, and it was over. The trashy stuff was done. I've never really had to deal with it much.
Yeah,
other than a dog would be a little bit, maybe tree opossum or something.
Yeah.
They were definitely just tree game type of dogs. And I'm not saying I never had a fox or a deer chase, but so easy it was to just deter them from it. That a lot of times, one or two treatments and it was over.
Yeah.
They preferred, coons, and now we have bears everywhere here now, and through all the years here, I've never treated a bear with these dogs. Never, not once. And that's
pretty amazing, right there.
Yeah, they just prefer coon, and I've actually tried to put them on a bear when I seen him cross the road a time or two, and they just look at you like, "What are you? What's going on? Get out of here!"
Yeah. Well, I'm in your camp too on that. I always, down through the years, had very little. Well, when I was young, we had some deer chases. We'd hunted a place called Camp Creek. It was 4 miles from the top of the mountain down to the creek, and then whole big country beyond that. And these dogs would get after a deer. They were always young dogs that did this, and they'd end up eventually. What you did, you had to get back and walk to the top of the mountain, get in the truck, drive all the way around, go into this state forest called Camp Creek, and drive up the creek a ways, and that's usually where the deer would go. They'd go to water, down that creek eventually, and you'd round them up. No tracking collars, none of that stuff. Just hoping, that you'd hit it right.
Yep, find them coming down the road somewhere.
Right. Well, I know my experience with the Lone Pine dogs. I haven't seen any of that. Trash running has not been an issue at all, and I just some guys say they like these rebels. They like a dog that'll get out there and run junk and gamble and all that stuff. But no, I don't either. And I saw a lot of that in Michigan. Dogs that would run trash and switch over, and that sort of thing. But
well, I think that was kind of maybe when a dog didn't really want to get through the territory there, that's what they used to get there, was to run something off and switch over, but why have a dog out there burning his time up doing something that's wrong is what I don't understand, but that's, I could never, as soon as I would see anything to that, degree that would pop up, I'm in the mode to squash that as soon as possible.
Well, I follow that for sure. Okay. We talked about Lady and Bella, and of course, right there for a time they were making all the noise in the coonhound world. But you've had some considerable success since. I know when Troy entered the picture with you and started handling dogs in the hunt, he had liked to handle the Bertha female who was out of Sioux. I know you know these things, but I'm just kind of showing off here that I've done my homework here. But out of Sioux, the world champion, and out of the Louis dog that's a litter mate to Fran that we've been talking about so much.
Yep.
And then, of course, Fran produced Little Fran, where we're going to get with her right away. But Bertha, a big female like her mother. I hunted with her the first time. She treed 3 coons around that cornfield at bottom one night, the first time I went with her. Now, Bertha had some success at walk. Didn't Troy do some winning with her?
Yeah, he did really good with her. He got her through the zones a couple times, and she's like double one of them Grand Night 2s or whatever. He won lots of casts with her, and he won the PA state hunt, and he got reserve the year before that in the state hunt. he did a lot of stuff local with her. We didn't really, we really don't travel a whole lot, so we just kind of, go to a hunt or two a year that's far from home. And usually it's around here unless somebody else gets their hands on them, but he never wanted anybody else to have her or handle her really too much. So we raised her as of course as a pup that, that was his first dog, so we put a lot of time into her, and she was a lot of fun.
Oh,
she was a wild
definitely
Yep.
coon treer too,
I remember that night you talked about down at where Crooked Creek flows into the Allegheny River. I took you down there, and she went about a mile up along the edge of that cornfield before she got up there and got treed, and she was on a maple that was leaning out over Crooked Creek.
I got a picture of
it. I
it.
said, here he is, Steve. He said, I want to, mostly you don't have them coons leaning out over the river like that. I think they just take a little swim, whenever they get up there. But she did that. We recut her 2 more times and treed a couple more coons. She was always fun.
And the tracks weren't on the ground that night. She was mostly hitting, I think, layups, or she was getting up on them so quick. But,
she's a good open trailer, but she would do either, so she's got a litter of babies right now.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What'd she bred to?
I bred her to Kyle Dorsch's drive line. This was the second litter now that I've had out of drive line.
You bred Shot the first time to him, didn't you?
Bred Shot the first time, and there's a little bit of a story that goes along with that. Bob Dudley had been after me for about a year and a half. He wanted a dog, and John had told him to keep after it. Well, I had sent I called her Downline, the female that I kept out of Shot, and Clayton got her going really good last winter out there, and it was time to make a switch, and I just had Bob go up and get her, and they just fell in love with her. She's doing so great. So Bob, through a lot of conversations, he said, where there's any litter mates to her? Well, Josh Hessler in Kentucky had called me, and he had a male dog he had already done some winning with real young out of that litter. And he asked me if I was interested in buying him. And, I really don't need a dog to tree coons here. I got plenty to hunt.
No, you don't.
And a male dog is just puts a wrench into this. I've got a whole yard full of females here, and there's seems to be one of them in heat or something all the time, and a male dog just adds a lot of complications to it. So I passed on him, but I told Bob about Rock, and he just bought him over the phone that very day right there. And that dog's he's on a tirade right now. Daryl Guess is hunting him. And I don't know what all they won with him, but he's got a super bright future to him. He got into the Final Four to Super Stakes along with Clyde and another dog that was born here. We're all in Final Fours there at the Spring Super Stakes. A dog named Rowdy out of Trackman and Jill. So anyway, it's been,
I know.
Been good. I love to see them heavy hitters out there carrying them dogs around. That's great.
Bob. He's had some good ones. The Cowie Creek Clint out of Sackett Jr. was a stud dog, as you know. But Bob's a nice fella. Well, that's good.
Surely is. Yep. So we partnered up on her, and I would say that we'll be hearing from her here real soon.
Well, good deal. Good deal. Well, what else is in the oven or recently born or whatever around there?
Pearl is a litter mate to Bella and Dinah and the snow-faced dog from up in
Now, they're
Canada.
out of Bone Collector.
Yeah, out of Bone and Fran.
There comes Fran again. That's my girl.
Dan and Carr and I partnered up to get Pearl bred. She's Danny's like all-time favorite, and she's due here in a couple weeks. We bred her to Driveline. Also, Kyle went out of his way to, make sure he sent back gals that were pregnant. He kept them bred for me and kept them out there, and that's another testament to help that you need to get all this done. But so she's due in a couple weeks, and then the next one will be Lady, I guess. So I'm just waiting on Dinah to come in. I think I'm gonna breed her to Frogger.
Okay, Dinah the Frogger. Well, that'll be interesting for sure. Well, you've had good luck breeding the Frogger.
Oh, he's a great reproducer, and the ones that I've had out of him have been really easy to work with. They just, they're naturally independent, naturally accurate. They just, one of the big things today is, how quick these dogs are able to hit that reset button. There seems to be, as far as that recut, once they get that dog into coon treeing mode, usually the biggest obstacle to tackle is getting them to go out of there just as hard off of that tree with a coon in it from the truck, and dogs like Frogger and Little Money, especially, them dogs are just naturally just beat feet, when they're cut off of those trees. And that's a huge, that is a big deal when it comes to competing today, so.
Oh yeah. I can remember when that was, you never saw a dog that you could do that. I hunted one night, and I can't think of this dog's name, but we were hunting PKC in Michigan, and he was treeing coons, and he just turned him around with his butt right against the bark of the tree and head him. Just give him a direction, and man, he was out of there,
Yeah.
And that is so important. I thought about this earlier, Randy. Dogs cannot make mistakes nowadays in these bigger hunts, can they?
No, they cannot. No, they can't have downtime, and it's good to have one that's sending itself out of there, but it's also really important to have one that doesn't just leave just because they're scared. He
knows
to be
where he's going.
It.
He's got to go.
Be looking for a coon, know, and that dog that's sitting in there out of pocket. You see it on these play-by-plays all the time. That there's a dog in the cast there that just never heard from. And that's. It's a fine line between one that, does the leaving part, but doesn't do the total leaving part. It's just, it's, they need to be everything today more than ever. And it's a tough game. It's tough.
Well, the stakes are so high, and, it's true. Not everybody can ante up $4,000 to enter a hunt.
You're right.
The ones that can know what they've got. They're not going to just take that $4,000 and throw it out there in the cornfield.
No, for sure.
So that in and of itself, to me, improves the quality of the game and so forth. And I know we don't compete on the same level, all of us. There's a few that get to compete in NASCAR at the Grand National level with the Daytona 500, but there's a lot of good old boys out here on a dirt track somewhere on Friday night.
And there's nothing wrong with either one of them.
Exactly.
You just do what fits you. Not a lot of people can afford or want to leave family and all that. It's for, it's nice that there's something for everybody, and it's all good that way.
You hit on something right there that's absolutely true. It's not just the money for the entry fee; it's all the residuals, the impact on your family, the travel time, the impact on your business, or your job, or whatever. It's a commitment. It really is, and
it surely is, and there's a reason why. you see those same names all the time, because they're willing to sacrifice, the sleep, the the family. They're doing it. They're doing something that just a lot of people won't do.
Yeah.
And they know that they got the right dog. So they're
Yeah.
willing to put her down, and I mean, I'm like, hats off to it.
Man, if I was a young man and I had that right dog, I'd find a sponsor somewhere. I would say, I got to get out there. That's why I'll dig him a little bit. Keston didn't like to go to town. He's a farm boy. He didn't like to go to the hunts and stuff,
Well, it's not for everybody.
No, it isn't. That's for sure. And he's just such an humble guy. And and I'd say, man, get out there with that dog. You got a dog that can beat anybody in the country on a given night,
Mm-hmm.
He just couldn't find it within himself. And if you don't enjoy it, why do it? That's why
That's right. That's right.
But anyway, it's good to see these dogs do well when they find that like Prophet with Clayton and so forth, But okay. What else? Okay, you mentioned we talked about Frogger, and last fall when I came up and hunted with you, I got to hunt with. Of course, we talked Little Fran there, but also with Farrah. Now Farrah's out of Frogger, and which female?
Shot. She's out of Shot in front.
Now, Shot has been a real producer for you.
Yeah,
she was out of Jigs.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. She's out of Jigs and Miss Quickie, and she's. I wouldn't. I made a post here last winter. That I had Farrah for sale, and I would take 100,000 for her. And no negotiations. But it's funny. But I probably. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't sell her for. We just love her. She. I don't know if what her future is on the big arena as far as night hunts go, but. If you enjoy coon hunting and you say you don't like her, I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Well, again, I was privileged to be up with you last fall. And we hunted she and Little Fran every night that we went, but just an amazing young dog, covers ground and got a terrific mouth and accurate, man. What you just seem to pull them out of the woodwork. But for guys that think that it's all a fluke, a chance, that's why I wanted you to listen to this podcast, to listen to the background of this stuff and to what goes into it, and to establish a kennel like you have, Randy. Man, untold hours. Not just the hunting and the lost sleep, but the whelping the pups. I know you've been camping out with these females here lately when they whelp these pups.
Yep, I do. I haven't bought any of them, Steve. Not even, buy them back. We just raised them here and trained them, and when they're running around here, I'm as confident as I can be that they're going to be what I planned on, and it just mostly it works out, there's a lot to be said about, confidence in what you're doing. And when, they're just not, some people that buy them, they're just, it's just a pup that we're getting, to me, I don't look at it that way. It's 30 some years of, devotion to making this work. And so when you look at it like that, I don't, that's why I don't sell dogs or anything. There's no way for me to put a price on what they are when you look at them papers. And, I haven't missed a generation that there's, 8, 9, 10 generations of dogs that were all born between, here and Tom's and everything. And when you look at it that way, you're like, well, okay, the dog isn't started and it's 11 months old and it's just not ready yet. And it's like, well, who cares? I'm not looking at the here and now. I'm looking at,
Yeah.
4 years down the road here or whatever,
Yeah.
So, mostly they start whenever they're supposed to. And I got one running around here out of Lady and Jigs right now that she's ready to go. She's like an orangutan, she can't wait to get turned loose, and it's coming. But, it's just, I just feel that, I know it's going to work. And if you look at it like that, it mostly does,
If we could instill this into the people that buy puppies, that confidence, and say, I know it's in there. Now it's up to me to give this pup the opportunities it needs for that to come out, to the surface. Give them those opportunities,
Yep.
And if I don't give them the opportunity, then that's all on me, because it's already in that pup. And I'm not going to believe or try to tell anybody that every single pup makes a superstar. It's not, but there's so much wasted in these dogs by people that just and to their credit, some of them just don't know. They don't know how.
Well, they don't know, and they don't have, like, the facility that we have here in order to give them that chance is quite different than most anywhere, just for the fact of where we live here, and I can let them run loose, and Miss Carrie puts up with them destroying everything and all that. It's just
most patient woman in the world. Kudos to Carrie. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's been my guiding light here. What a great woman.
Absolutely.
Yep. She devotes her whole life to other people's happiness. You just don't come across people like that too often.
When you go to the Smiths, you instantly feel at home. You feel like family. It's not, not overboard. It's just an underlying current there that they appreciate people, and I've always had nothing but I'm kind of aggravated myself that I didn't get to come up this spring, because I've let a spring opportunity get by me now.
Well,
but
not because of me.
No, not at all. I know. You've even offered that limousine service from the airport. All of that. And I'm going to, if the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I'll be up there this fall for sure.
Well, if you can get a plane ticket up here and back for $200 and a bag of Doritos is $7, I'd say it's a good deal.
It's a good deal you slice it. You slice it.
Right.
All right. Well, any hunts coming up here soon for you guys?
We got the dogs qualified and stuff, so we'll be getting ready for the World Hunt here the rest of this summer. And
that's only 3 months away, bud.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Crazy.
But we did have a good. We wanted to talk about Walker Days here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's do that.
That was one of my highlighted moments here. I've been going to Walker Days ever since Tom and I were partners, and hardly ever missed a year. Just a couple years when the boys were young and it landed on Easter. I didn't get to go, but I've been trying to win Walker Days for the better part of my life, and finally got it done this spring. There, it was it happened to be at Clayton's place there, real close to his place, so that was nice. And Clayton guided me, and we treed a bunch of coons. I think Fran made, what did I tell you, like 15 trees? I think
that's what you said, yeah.
I think she made 15 trees on 3 casts and had a den tree and a coon in every other tree for the win. It was awesome. I got in the first night. It was a funny story. We had a really good dog in the cast, Jeremy Miller. I think that's his last name, Jeremy Miller. Fella from Indiana. We drew out. He had a really nice dog out of Set 'em Up Joe and Fred Bear female. And it come down to him and I at we hunted in the same woods all but about the last, maybe I think there was like 9 minutes or something like that. And I had to cast one with 5 something, and we turned loose in this little block there. Clayton put us in. There was a little breeze blowing from side to side in there, and it was just had that feeling that it was just going to be an explosion in there. Well, little Fran went way through it, this block, and got in the back there, and made like one bark. And I waited a little bit and struck her probably on the third one. And you could just tell it wasn't no kind of it was like she was winding,
Yeah.
So I said to the guys, what's the weather supposed to be like tomorrow night? He said, terrible. It's supposed to pour the rain down and everything. I'm thinking, okay. So she comes treed back in there. And I said to Clayton, what's that like back there? He said, it's bad. They got it pushed up with a bunch of dozer piles back in there. She's just back there screaming her guts out, So I said, just tree her. But I had to cast one, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like, it didn't really make a lot of sense to take the chance. There was no time to put the stationary on her or anything. And we went back and she was on a climber tree and had a coon, And as it turned out, that's what got me through that score. It was 750 or 775 or something I had, and it was enough to get me
through to the
into the finals on Friday.
Okay.
So, no, Saturday. You're correct. That was Thursday. I didn't have to hunt Friday.
Right.
So I went with Troy Friday, which was great. He tied though in the cast and lost with a tiebreaker with Farrah. But anyway, so then Friday night, she won pretty handily there, and we went back out for the final 4. And
you mean Saturday night? You said Friday,
Saturday,
but
Saturday night. Yeah, Saturday night. We went out early and won it with a pretty good score. I don't remember what it was, maybe 5 something or whatever, and then. The final 4 consisted of Eric Pyatt and a Bill dog that he's hunting, and Randy Gadd. I think his dog name was Swamp. And then there was a dog that Russ Meller owned.
No rookies there.
No. But we had a great cast, and Eric and Randy's dog were kind of out of it from the get-go there, and it was between me and I'm trying to think of that fella's name. Bebout, maybe. It was.
I don't know who's hunting for Russell now. I used to know the
really,
guy.
Really nice fella. And he had a dog out of Frogger, and he made three coons, 3 trees with coons in, and a couple dens, I think. And Fran just made 3 trees with 3 coons, and I won the cast by a quarter, I think. And it was
tight.
Fran was scattered way through the country. We listened to her treat a mile and a quarter, to get her treat in.
Now that was the final 4 cast for the Walker Days title.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It
was Troy along with you?
Yeah, he was. Yep.
He's feeling good. I know.
Yeah. We had a great night. It was awesome.
Troy is an interesting individual. Very, very smart. Very articulate. Very attention to detail type kid. But he doesn't throw it out there at you. He's very reserved, pretty quiet. But that still water runs deep, man.
Such a good boy.
He is.
Yep.
You are blessed.
Neither one of those boys have caused us any kind of grief other than just regular boy stuff.
Yeah. And, just getting hurt all the time.
Yeah. Troy graduated with honors, and he could have had a ride to go to school if he wanted, but he's gonna pick up here where
Yeah.
where I'm leaving off with the business. He wants to do what we do here, and he's
Yeah.
studying to be a pastor.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm glad
yeah.
you mentioned that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's all great stuff. Parenting pays. You and Carrie have done an awesome job with that. And you've got a great family support group around there with your mother.
We surely have.
Yeah, Shirley's just awesome.
Yep, she's poured her love out to them boys from before they were born. She was over there feeding their mother to make sure she was.
I guarantee you, everybody's going to be well fed if you go around Shirley. She's going to feed you, and it's delicious, and there's going to be plenty of it.
Yep. So
what have we missed, Randy?
Oh, that's been about to catch up there. I think since fall, it's, just hooking up with Bob Dudley down there, and we're working on, John's hunting Ann, and she's a deadlock, so he's all satisfied with the dog for now, but
he'll be coming back to
there.
The well.
Oh yeah, he's hoping that when the time comes, we have a replacement, so we're putting the time in. Just hope that's the case, but it's all been good. I mean, there's definitely bumps in the road when you're dealing with animals and a bunch of them and stuff. I lived on a dairy farm growing up, and it was there's some heartache involved with animals all the time, but you just have to, it just makes the good times feel that much better, I reckon.
Are you still there, Randy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I was getting an incoming call. I still haven't mastered this I got a newer model iPhone. It's a slow learning curve for me. Well, I tell you what, man, it's always great to visit with you, and I like to share our conversations with the listeners because when you're on here, I always get a lot of good feedback about people saying, I learned something. I liked, to hear Randy. And I've said this many times, and I don't try to blow smoke, but I know that you put more into this game than anybody I know, and on a lot of levels. And I know more recently you've really gotten into developing your ability to whelp puppies through your, and through some of the supplements and different things like that. You want to say anything about that at all?
Sure. Yeah. Elite Nutrition has been huge for us, not just, whelping puppies, but for performance, night in and night out in the woods, that Electro Boost has been one that I've really pushed for them, that I saw a huge difference from the very first time I used it. Their ASAP puppy is, when guys are raising pups, none of these hunting dogs have been selected because they were good mothers. They've been selected because they were good, they were good performance dogs, competitors or just plain coon treers or whatever. So when, in a lot of these breeds that, people buy puppies from, the mothers are selected through a line of good mothers. Well, I haven't been blessed with a lot of really, really good mothers here with these dogs. So I've had to just out of necessity come up with ways to help make that happen, save puppies and everything. And I've just done it out of desperation, and I've watched videos and read books and everything. And, at this point right now, I can pretty much save puppies from birth. If that mother, something happens to her, or, she's got her milk is no good or whatever, I'm set up with and have the products here to save puppies. And one of my biggest things always was from the day they were born to start to get them prepared to not need her. just in case something happens,
Yeah.
And at about 8 days now, before a puppy's eyes are even open, I can have them eating. And I mean, it's a lot of work, if you can't use the mother, but I can have them eating and have them on their way to being healthy pups, just doing it myself, and is like, if you're starting out and you're going to have a litter of pups today, I would suggest the first call that you would make would be to Chip Kosher with Elite Nutrition. He get you set up on what to feed that mama, for prenatal care, have milk replacers there. That, like I said, that ASAP puppy. If you go through all of that and you have a good female and you've went and carried her somewhere to get her bred and you've got all that, the last thing that you want to do is take a chance that you're going to have trouble. Clayton did a video of me doing different things with puppies. I mean, just for one, like tube feeding puppies is a cinch. There's absolutely nothing to it whatsoever. But people have a tendency to just be scared about tubing them, it's more dangerous to bottle feed them than it is to tube them.
Yeah, because they aspirate that milk into their
it's
lungs.
Just not, it's not natural. For that flow is just never right. It's not the tubing them. I mean, they're just in 15 minutes I can tube feed a whole litter, and they're just zonked out. As soon as that milk's in their belly. So, I'm going to do more videos with Clayton and stuff on emergency, puppy care, but it is vital to know that it's heartbreaking whenever I have people message me or whatever, and they say, "Oh, I've got this old female. It's probably my last chance to get a litter out of her, and she's losing them." And it's like,
oh yeah, it's the most really disheartening thing in the world.
It really is.
I've been there. I know.
Yep, it's avoidable. I mean, you can save them.
Right.
You just have to take the chance, and it's just like, when you have people that have done it before you, it's ridiculous not to know a few things and have a few syringes and catheters to tube them puppies and stuff. You can actually, with a catheter set and some syringes, you could go to Walmart and buy goat's milk and like save them pups. I mean, it's doable. You got to learn how to wipe rear ends and get them stuff like that. But, it's nothing you can't learn by looking at a YouTube video in 10 minutes.
Sure.
Yep.
Well, thanks for that. And I know that's so vitally important because, you got to bring those little boogers into the world before you can, get out there and enjoy them in the woods.
Yep.
And whatever. And you've
sure.
done a great job with that. And I want to get you back on and talk more about that as we go along, Randy. Today is, as I said earlier, the 4th of July. So family activities, I'm sure you have some planned. I have some planned. Everybody got sick down here on me. I was going to be the grill master today and had some ribs all set up and all this, and everybody's picked up some kind of virus.
Oh, that's terrible.
It's a respiratory thing. It's been just circling around down here like crazy. We live down here in this sauna. It's an incubator for every kind of disease and germ you can imagine. But hey, we got a new prison down here. Have you heard about Alligator Alcatraz? Well, that's going to be interesting. But
well, you know what? When you see Christy Nome on there saying, you don't want to end up here, so the best thing you can do is deport yourself right now. Right. If you ever want a chance of coming back, get your slate clean. I mean, what a bigger motivator than that to be
exactly.
If I want to live by the law, and this is like a second or third chance for these people to just go back where you come from and apply, legally to come back here. More likely you get to come back.
Right. Well, people, it goes back to my days in the Air Force and living in West Texas and coon hunting out there and all. People have been entering our country illegally for generations.
Sure.
Where there's a way, for them to come in. I'm not going to get on a big stump here about this, though. But we're a welcoming country. We really are. And I've met many, many people, that are from other countries, but they do it the right way.
Sure.
If I come to your house, I want to be able to come to the front door and ring the bell and be welcomed in. I don't want to have to sneak through a window on the back side of the house and
That's
help
correct.
myself to what you have, and to me it just boils down to that. But anyway, that's my political stump speech for today. Randy Smith, I love you like a brother, a son actually, and I appreciate you so much taking the time today away from your family, and I know you're a very busy man, but this Lone Pine story is, to me, one of the most amazing stories in all of our sport, how that you have, through determination, a lot of hard work, and a whole lot of know-how, have produced a line of dogs that everybody in the coonhound world recognizes as one of the very best. And I want to applaud you for your success and look forward to being able to take some hunts with those Lone Pine dogs here before long.
Well, I appreciate it, Steve. It's just, it's just been a blessing that I've been able to live the life of an outdoorsman and, just enjoy it as much as I have, and I
Sure.
hope to continue here.
Do it as long as you can, brother.
Yep.
I hate to tell you, but one day those strong legs you got are not going to be as strong.
No, I'm feeling it already.
But
in a cast, I was never ever looking at anybody's back.
Yeah,
Never.
I got you.
But today, I see hoodies. It's
be like me watching these videos on Josh Michaelis or Clayton and these final casts, and all you see is a bunch of guys walking. And, I don't mean to criticize those guys, but a lot of the time in a cast anymore is walking from tree to tree.
Absolutely.
But, man, those days won't last forever, but I hope you enjoy every one of them as long as you can.
I surely will, brother.
Okay, Randy Smith, chief cook and bottle washer, high potentate of the Lone Pine Kennel. Man, what a success story in our sport. We really appreciate you, Randy. Folks, give if you need anything for your dogs, yourself, your hunting gear, and Randy mentioned the supplements there that he uses, and we also are thankful for Alpha Dog Nutrition, who also provides a lot of nutritional aids and supplements and whatnot for our dogs. We appreciate them sponsoring this podcast, and we also always want to thank Big Mark Zepp Predator Calls, been a longtime friend and a constant supporter of this podcast. So until next time, folks, this is the 4th of July. I know you won't be listening to this until the Monday following, but I hope you've had a great holiday, and thanks for listening to Gone to the Dogs.